Hello, everybody, and welcome back to our CPI Project Booster series. We're going to be talking today about confidentiality and privilege. I understand this is one of the most frustrating areas surrounding domestic and sexual violence centers because the laws are so stringent in how we handle the information regarding our participants. So, the first law that really focuses around the location and information about the survivor is Section 39908. It's the confidentiality and information received by the Department or Domestic Violence Center. That is the name of the state statute. So, one of the main things of that particular law is that the location of the center is confidential. Information about the clients and location of the domestic violence center and facilities is confidential and exempt from all public records law. The next thing is information about the clients is private without a signed release of information. Domestic Violence Center staff, including volunteers, cannot disclose any information about Domestic Violence Center clients without the written consent of the client, except in certain circumstances that are listed in the statute. So, one of the frustrating things about that is a lot of the times we'll get a release of information from a case manager or a child protective investigator, and it's not quite up to snuff. It doesn't meet the statutory requirements. One of the things that we have to do when we are talking about releasing a client's information is we have to give that client super informed consent. So we have to go over with them what information will be released. We have to go over with them who that information will be released to, and it can be so specific as to only CPI and Supervisor A. So if an additional gets called in or a case manager gets involved, that release of information does not transfer over. These releases are meant to be super specific so that way the survivor has complete control over who and where their information is going. So then we also have to explain to them that after that information is released, we are no longer in control of what happens with that information. That if we release the information to person A can take that information and give it to person B, and person B can give it to person C. We have to be that we have to hit that level of extreme informed consent so that the survivors understand completely that they are the masters of their destiny when it comes to their confidential information. The next statute is State Statute 95036, and that is the Domestic Violence Advocate Victim Privilege. This is a special relationship, almost like one has with a doctor or their attorney. A victim of domestic violence has a privilege to refuse to disclose and prevent any other person from disclosing a confidential communication made by the victim to a domestic violence advocate or any record made in the course of advising, counseling, or assisting with the victim. So the reason for that is again, it's to put control back in the hands of the survivor. These laws surrounding victim privilege and confidentiality help the survivor regain some of the control that they lost while they were suffering at the hands of their abuser. Now, this is also another reason why advocates talk about needing to build that rapport with your survivors. When you're working with a survivor of domestic violence, they are the, you know, masters of their information when it comes to working with the center. So that's why it's very important to build rapport with them so they feel like they can be comfortable with allowing us to share that information with you. So it's very important when you are asking them to sign a release of information, you have to understand that this is a big deal for them. This is a lot of what they've been doing at the shelter. We have to be very specific with how that release of information works. There, because Dawn Center of Hernando County is a dual certified center, we're also going to go over the sexual assault counselor victim privilege as well, and that's state statute 9503335. And a victim of sexual assault has a privilege to refuse to disclose and prevent any other person from disclosing a confidential communication made by the victim to a sexual assault counselor or trained volunteer or any record made in the course of advising, counseling, or assisting the victim. This is very, very similar to the previous um, section, you can see that they're under like kind of the same number thing um, in the law books. So the are more or less the same type of privilege, right? And the authority of the domestic violence advocate and sexual assault counselor to claim privilege is presumed in the absence of evidence to the contrary. That means that you can't bring us into a courtroom and ask the judge to force us to speak. Like, we cannot be compelled to talk. We cannot be, made to deny the survivor privilege of their information. Um, the only way that a domestic or sexual violence advocate can speak and testify in a court of law is if the survivor themselves waives that privilege and has a moment to talk with the advocate so they understand what waiving that privilege means. Again, we go back to that super informed consent. It's very important that the survivor feels like they are the owners of their information in their lives, because that's what we're trying to do is we're trying to re-empower them from having suffered through this abuse where they've been told constantly day in and day out that they're worthless, that they're useless, that they're a bitch, they're stupid, all these things that have been used to tear them down. Making sure that these laws are respected helps build them back up and empowers them to really make those critically informed choices about how to move forward with their lives. I hope that this information helps you when working with survivors. And if you have any questions, all the statutes are displayed there at the very top, so you can go and do more research on the statutes and see how they can be applied in your work. Thank you guys so much for stopping by. This has been Ryan Pettit, your domestic violence child welfare advocate with Dawn Center of Hernando County, and I look forward to seeing you next time.